Beneath the limestone walls of St. Catherine's Convent in Savannah, Georgia, lies a sealed chapel, one that hasn't been opened since 1749. Local historians know exactly why. Inside those walls, investigators discovered 23 pages of correspondence the Catholic Church once tried to destroy. Letters describing something impossible, something that could shatter every religious belief of colonial America. Sister Marie Terz, 51 years old, head of the convent's disciplinary committee and known for her strict enforcement of chastity vows, became pregnant. But this was no ordinary pregnancy. The child's father was a 17-year-old enslaved man named Thomas, property of the convent itself. Yet Sister Marie didn't hide in shame. She stood before the entire congregation and declared her condition a miracle from God. What happened within those chapel walls didn't just challenge religious doctrine. It exposed a hidden web of corruption, one that stretched from Savannah's wealthiest plantation owners all the way to the Archbishop's personal residence. Tonight, after 275 years of silence, we uncover what truly happened behind those convent doors. But before we continue with the story of Sister Marie Terz and the scandal that consumed St. Catherine's, if dark historical mysteries fascinate you, make sure to subscribe to Liturgy of Fear and tap that notification bell, because stories as shocking never make it into history books. And I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your city or state in the comments below. I love knowing where our community of mystery lovers is listening from. Now, let's travel back to 1748 Savannah, to a time when religious institutions held absolute power, and discover how one woman's claim would unravel everything. Savannah in 1748 was a city of contradictions. Founded just 15 years earlier as a utopian experiment that banned slavery and alcohol, it had already abandoned its founding ideals. Rice plantations now lined the riverbanks, worked by hundreds of enslaved people whose labor transformed Georgia into one of the most profitable colonies in America. Religious institutions, Baptist, Presbyterian, Anglican, and Catholic, competed fiercely for influence among the city's 3,000 residents. St. Catherine's Convent stood on 3 acres near the eastern edge of town, its whitewashed buildings visible from the main road. Established in 1742 by French Catholic missionaries, the convent served several purposes: a spiritual retreat for wealthy women, an educational center for the daughters of plantation owners, and an administrative hub for the church's expanding holdings in Georgia. By 1748, the convent was home to 18 nuns, 12 novices, 47 students, and owned 9 enslaved people who tended gardens, kitchens, and maintenance work. Sister Marie Terz had arrived from Quebec 7 years earlier, her reputation preceding her. At 44, she had already served 26 years in religious life. Known across New France for her uncompromising discipline, her letters of recommendation described her as a woman of absolute devotion, untouched by earthly temptation, whose mere presence reminded others of their sacred vows. Mother Superior Josephine Beaumont had specifically requested her to reform St. Catherine's, a convent that had earned whispers of leniency and moral decay. The transformation was immediate. Sister Marie enforced French monastic rules with military precision. She created inspection schedules, required confession 3 times a week, and formed a disciplinary committee to investigate even the faintest hint of improper behavior. The younger nuns learned to fear her footsteps in the corridors, the way her gray eyes seemed to see through walls. She rarely raised her voice. She didn't need to. Her silence carried more authority than any sermon. Among the convent's enslaved workers, 17-year-old Thomas held a unique position. Purchased 3 years earlier at a Charleston auction, he possessed an uncommon education. His previous owner, a merchant fallen into debt, had taught him to read and write, a dangerous skill for an enslaved man, illegal in many colonies. The convent exploited his literacy to manage correspondence, inventory records, and educational materials. Thomas worked mostly in the library, copying texts, organizing documents, preparing materials for school. He moved to the convent like a shadow, always present, yet invisible, performing his duties with quiet precision. The nuns had grown accustomed to seeing him in spaces typically forbidden to men: the chapel during early morning cleaning, the library during afternoon study, the hallways when delivering messages. His youth and intelligence made him seem harmless compared to the older field workers who never entered the main buildings. Sister Marie had, of course, noticed him. She noticed everything. But Thomas was of no concern, just another instrument the convent used to maintain its order. Or so everyone believed. The summer of 1748 brought unbearable heat to coastal Georgia. The convent's thick stone walls offered some relief, but the humidity made sleep almost impossible. Night prayers stretched later into the evening as nuns sought the coolness of night air. It was during these late vigils that other sisters began to notice something strange. Sister Marie's prayer schedule had changed. For 7 years, her routine had been unshakably consistent. Morning prayers at 4:30, private meditation at 6 o'clock, Mass at 7 o'clock, evening prayers at 8 o'clock. But now, she appeared at odd hours, 10 at night, 11, sometimes even past midnight. When questioned, she simply said she was seeking deeper communion with God, that the Holy Spirit had called her to more intensive prayer. No one dared question further. After all, this was Sister Marie, the embodiment of devotion. The first crack in her facade appeared on the morning of October 3rd, 1748. Sister Agnes Fontaine, a young nun responsible for the convent's linens, entered the laundry room at dawn and froze. Among the soiled garments lay Sister Marie Terz's nightdress, marked with bloodstains, in a pattern Sister Agnes recognized instantly. Women in religious communities always noticed such things. They lived too closely not to. But Sister Marie hadn't menstruated in 4 years. Everyone knew that. At 51, she had reached a stage of life when such things ceased. Sister Agnes stood frozen, the nightdress trembling in her hands. She washed it 3 times, hung it to dry in the private drying room, and said nothing. But the knowledge burned inside her like hot iron. 3 weeks later, during morning chapel service, Sister Marie collapsed. She had never shown weakness before, never missed a prayer, never taken a day of rest, never once complained of illness. Mother Superior Josephine immediately ordered her to the infirmary, where Sister Catherine Mercier, the convent's medical attendant, conducted the examination. What Sister Catherine discovered defied reason. She examined Sister Marie twice, certain she must have made an error, then a 3rd time. Each test confirmed the impossible. Sister Marie Terz was approximately 3 months pregnant. Sister Catherine stood in the small infirmary, her hands shaking as she wrote in the medical log. She drafted the entry 3 times, crossing out each version, unable to find words that could make sense of what she had seen. Finally, she wrote only, "Patient presents with symptoms consistent with early pregnancy. This finding requires immediate consultation with Mother Superior." The meeting took place that same evening in Mother Superior Josephine's private office, a wood panel room that smelled of beeswax and old parchment. Present were Mother Superior Josephine, Sister Marie Terz, Sister Catherine, and Father Benedict Hammond, the convent's chaplain who had served in Savannah since its founding. Sister Catherine spoke first, her voice barely above a whisper. She detailed the physical signs, the cessation of menses, the breast changes, the morning sickness that Sister Marie had dismissed as food poisoning from spoiled fish. The examination, she said, had been thorough and professional, and there was no doubt about the diagnosis. Father Hammond's face flushed crimson. "This is impossible," he said. "Sister Marie has served God for 33 years. There must be another explanation, a tumor perhaps, or some condition that mimics." "I know the difference," Sister Catherine interrupted, a boldness that shocked everyone in the room. "I've attended 17 births in this town. I've examined pregnant women dozens of times. This is not a tumor." Mother Superior Josephine turned toward Sister Marie, who sat upright, her hands folded neatly in her lap, her expression calm, almost radiant. "Sister," Josephine asked softly, "you must tell us the truth. How did this happen? What Sister Marie said next would echo through Savannah for generations. "It is a blessing from God," she said simply. "The Lord has chosen me as his vessel, just as he chose the Virgin Mary. I have been faithful to my vows. I have never broken my promise to God, and yet I carry new life within me. If you doubt me, examine my conscience. You will find it purer." The silence that followed was suffocating. Father Hammond gripped the edge of the desk, so tightly his knuckles turned white. Sister Catherine made a small sound, half gasp, half sob, before covering her mouth. Mother Superior Josephine stared at Sister Marie as though seeing her for the first time. "Sister," Father Hammond said carefully, "are you suggesting this is a virgin birth? That you've been impregnated by divine intervention?" "I'm suggesting nothing," Sister Marie replied. "I'm stating what I know to be true. I have remained faithful to my vows, and I am with child. Draw whatever conclusions you wish." The meeting ended without resolution. Father Hammond left at once to send an urgent message to the Archbishop in Charleston. Mother Superior Josephine confined Sister Marie to her cell, not as punishment, but for protection. Protection from scandal, from inquiry, from the chaos her revelation would unleash. But secrets within closed walls spread like water through limestone. By the next morning, every nun in the convent knew of Sister Marie's condition. By afternoon, the students' whispers had reached their parents. By evening, the story had infected Savannah like cholera. The enslaved workers who served the convent learned the news through the kitchen staff. That night, they gathered in their quarters, whispering in the dark about the scandal unfolding inside the main house. Thomas, who had been quietly transcribing a new Bible for the library, said nothing. He sat in the corner of the small cabin he shared with 3 others, hands folded, face unreadable. But those who knew him best noticed a change. Thomas had stopped eating. For 3 days, he took no food, only water. His hands trembled as he worked. And late at night, when he thought the others slept, they heard him weeping. The Archbishop's response arrived within a week. Remarkable speed given the distance from Charleston. His letter, sealed in red wax and marked confidential, contained instructions that left no room for interpretation. Sister Marie Terz was to be examined by a panel of 3 physicians, questioned under oath by church authorities, and, if found to have violated her vows, immediately defrocked and expelled from the convent. The scandal, he wrote, must be contained before it spread beyond Savannah's walls. Dr. Robert Drayton arrived first, a Charleston physician with 20 years of experience, known for his discretion in delicate matters. Next came Dr. James Pritchard, Savannah's most respected practitioner, the man who had delivered half the town's children. The third, Dr. Samuel Whitefield, was a specialist in women's health who had studied in London before settling in Georgia. They examined Sister Marie Terz on October 28th in the convent's small medical chamber. All 3 reached the same conclusion. She was approximately 15 weeks pregnant. The child appeared healthy. The pregnancy showed no signs of abnormality. Their written report, preserved today in the Charleston Diocese archives, used careful language but left no doubt. The patient exhibits all standard markers of natural conception. We find no evidence of medical anomaly or divine intervention. This pregnancy results from normal physiological processes. The interrogation began the following day. Bishop Marcus Fenwick had traveled from Charleston specifically for this purpose, bringing with him Father Thomas Donnelly, a Jesuit renowned for his ability to extract truth from even the most unwilling subjects, joined the interrogation. For 11 hours over the course of 3 days, they questioned Sister Marie Terz. She never wavered, never contradicted herself, never showed fear or hesitation. Her story remained completely consistent. She had kept her vows, had never been alone with any man, had never committed any act that could lead to pregnancy. She accepted her condition as God's will, a divine test of faith. On the 4th day, the interrogators changed tactics. Father Donnelly brought out the convent schedule logs, the meticulous records that Sister Marie herself had established years before. They documented every nun's movements and activities throughout each day. He began pressing her with pointed questions. Why had she changed her prayer schedule in July? Why had she been in the library at unusual hours? Why had she requested access to the storage chapel, a space normally kept locked, on 17 separate occasions between June and September? Sister Marie answered each question calmly. The change in her prayer schedule reflected her deepening spiritual needs. Her time in the library was for research on medieval monastic practices. The chapel visits, she explained, were to inspect the storage conditions of valuable religious texts. Then Bishop Fenwick asked a question that broke through her composure. "Sister," he said, "do you know a young man named Thomas?" For the first time in 4 days of interrogation, Sister Marie hesitated. The pause lasted only 3 seconds, but everyone in the room felt it. When she finally spoke, her voice was steady, but something in her demeanor had changed. "Thomas works in the library," she said. "I've assigned him to copying tasks." "Why do you ask?" "Because Thomas has requested to speak with me," the bishop replied. "And what he wishes to confess, Sister, concerns you." Thomas stood in the bishop's temporary office, a converted classroom within the convent school, and spoke words that would change everything. He'd been granted the meeting after sending a carefully written note to Father Hammond. It contained only one sentence. "I know the truth about Sister Marie Terzler's child." What Thomas revealed over the next 2 hours painted a picture more complex than anyone could have imagined. He confirmed that Sister Marie was not lying. Not exactly. She had indeed maintained her vows. She had never been physically intimate with any man. But the pregnancy, he said, was not the result of divine intervention. It was a result of artificial insemination. The idea was not completely unknown in 1748, though it remained mostly theoretical. European scientists had experimented with animal breeding, transferring reproductive material from male to female without physical contact. The process had been documented in French scientific journals, debated in medical societies, and condemned by the Church as an attempt to usurp God's power over creation. Sister Marie had read about these experiments in the convent's library. The texts were supposed to be locked away, controversial scientific materials restricted from general access. But as head of the disciplinary committee, she had clearance to view everything. She had studied the procedures, memorized the methods, and learned about their limited successes in sheep and cattle. Thomas explained that Sister Marie had approached him in late May, asking for help with what she described as a religious experiment. She had been direct about her intentions. She believed God was calling her to prove that a woman's faith could transcend the natural boundaries of age and conception, that she could become pregnant without sin, remaining chaste yet bearing life, as a testament to divine will. The procedure required Thomas to provide reproductive material, which he would deposit into a clean glass vessel. Sister Marie would then use a specially prepared syringe, one she had secretly commissioned from a medical supplier in Charleston, claiming it was for administering medicine to sick animals, to transfer the material into herself. There would be no physical contact between them. In her mind, her chastity would remain intact. At first, Thomas had refused. The very idea horrified him, not just because it violated every social and religious code, but because he understood the danger. If discovered, he would be executed without question. An enslaved black man implicated in a nun's pregnancy, no one would believe anything but the worst. But Sister Marie had offered him the one thing he desired above all else: freedom. She told him she held the authority to manumit, to legally free the enslaved people owned by the convent. All it would require was a Mother Superior's signature, which Sister Marie could easily obtain through her role on the Administrative Council. She showed him documents, draft papers bearing her signature, and gave her personal promise. If he helped her complete the experiment, she would secure his freedom before the child was born. The procedures took place in the locked storage chapel late at night, while the rest of the convent slept. There were 7 attempts between June and early August. The 8th on August 12th succeeded. Thomas would provide the biological material in an adjacent room, never seeing or touching Sister Marie during the process. She handled the technical aspects herself, following procedures she had memorized from scientific texts. When Thomas finished a confession, Bishop Fenwick sat in stunned silence. Father Donnelly had stopped taking notes, his pen frozen above the page. This was no simple act of adultery. This was no physical violation of vows. This was something far stranger, a deliberate manipulation of theology and science to create life while maintaining the appearance of virginity. Why are you telling us this? Father Donnelly finally asked. Sister Marie offered you freedom. This confession guarantees your death. Thomas's response carried a pain deeper than fear. Because she lied to me, he said quietly. The freedom papers she showed me were forgeries. I saw the real documents 3 days ago while organizing files in Mother Superior's office. Sister Marie has no authority to grant manumission. She never did. She used me, put me in mortal danger, and had no intention of keeping her promise. I won't die for her pride. The bishop ordered Thomas to be held in secure quarters, not arrested but protected. Too many people already wanted him dead. Rumors had swept through Savannah, whispers of an enslaved man and Sister Marie Terz. Plantation owners spoke openly about taking justice into their own hands. The city's constables had to post guards around the convent just to keep mobs from storming it. The church now faced an impossible dilemma. Sister Marie Terz had technically not broken her vows, at least not through any physical act with Thomas. But what she had done was far more disturbing. She had deliberately subverted both divine and natural law, using science to achieve pregnancy while clinging to a legal claim of virginity. And she had manipulated an enslaved man, placing his life in mortal danger for an experiment that served only her own pride and theological vanity. What happened next would force the Catholic Church to confront questions it had never dared to ask. But before we continue, I want to hear from you. Do you think Sister Marie truly believed she was following God's will? Or was this all a calculated attempt to achieve the impossible? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. And if this story shocked you as much as it did me, hit that like button and share this video with someone who loves dark historical mysteries. Now, let's uncover what happened when the church tried to contain the scandal. The church convened an ecclesiastical tribunal on November 15th, 1748, the first such proceeding in Georgia's history. 5 senior clergy arrived from Charleston, 2 more from Virginia. They gathered inside the convent's main chapel, which had been cleared of all students and sealed off from the public. The proceedings, they agreed, must remain absolutely confidential. Sister Marie Terz appeared before them in full habit. Her pregnancy was now undeniable, nearly 6 months along, the swelling of her abdomen visible even beneath the loose folds of her robe. She stood before the tribunal with that same calm serenity she had carried through every interrogation, her hands gently resting on her belly. The lead interrogator, Cardinal Sebastian Hartley, began with a simple question. Sister, do you understand why you stand before this tribunal? I understand that you doubt God's power to work miracles, she replied. The cardinal's jaw tightened. Sister, we've heard Thomas's testimony. We know about the procedures you performed, the medical instruments you acquired, the scientific texts you studied. This was not a miracle. This was a deliberate manipulation of nature. Is there a difference? Sister Marie Terz asked evenly. God created nature. God created science. If I use the tools he provided to achieve his will, how is that different from any other miracle? Did Jesus not use mud to heal the blind? Did Moses not use a staff to part the Red Sea? All miracles employ earthly things to manifest divine purpose. Her argument was far more sophisticated than the tribunal had anticipated. She had clearly prepared her defense. Every word measured, every objection anticipated. Father Donnelly presented the evidence with precision. The medical journals found in her possession, the syringe she commissioned, Thomas's detailed testimony about the experiments, the locked chapel where everything had taken place. He argued that Sister Marie Terz had committed fraud, not adultery, but something worse. She had attempted to manufacture a miracle, deceiving the faithful into believing that God himself had intervened, when in truth she had merely applied scientific technique. Sister Marie Terz countered each point with chilling logic. "Yes," she said, "I studied science. Is not knowledge of God's creation a form of worship? Yes, I use medical instruments. Are doctors not God's instruments of healing? Yes, I involve Thomas. But has God not always chosen the humble and powerless to perform his greatest works?" She never claimed to have created the pregnancy herself. She claimed only to have made herself available to God's will, and that God had chosen to bless her efforts. "You coerced an enslaved man into your experiment," Cardinal Hartley said, his voice rising. "You promised him freedom you could not grant. You place his life in jeopardy for your own ends. Where is God's will in that deception?" For the first time, Sister Maritz's composure cracked. "Thomas misunderstood," she said quickly. "I told him I would do all within my power to secure his freedom. I never claimed I had the authority myself. My plan was to petition Mother Superior and the Archbishop after birth to argue that his role in this miracle warranted reward. His freedom was always my intent. But you showed him forged papers," Father Donnelly pressed. "You deliberately misled him about your authority." Sister Maritz fell silent. Nearly a full minute passed before she spoke again, her voice now harder, colder. "I showed him documents that represented my will, my faith. Whether or not they carried legal power was irrelevant to the greater purpose. Thomas was never in danger. I would have protected him." "Protected him?" Cardinal Hartley snapped, standing abruptly, his chair scraping against the stone floor. "Sister, there are plantation owners in Savannah calling for his execution right now. Mobs are gathering outside this very convent. Your protection means nothing against that reality." The tribunal recessed for 3 hours to deliberate, but before they could even reconvene, grim news arrived. A group of 23 men, led by plantation owner Harrison DeVoe, had attempted to break into the convent's quarters, where Thomas was being held. Only the armed intervention of city constables prevented bloodshed. DeVoe had publicly declared that no blasphemous experiment would stain Georgia's moral foundations, and that the slave Thomas represented a corruption that must be cut out before it spreads. When the tribunal returned, the air was thick with fear and outrage. Cardinal Hartley delivered their decision. Sister Marie Terz would be immediately defrocked and expelled from religious life. She would be confined to a private residence in Charleston until her child's birth. Afterward, the infant would be placed with a Catholic family. And Sister Marie Terz, she would no longer carry that name. What followed next tested the limits of faith, medicine, and human endurance. Sister Marie Terz's punishment was absolute. She was to be permanently exiled from Georgia, forbidden to ever again claim religious authority, forbidden to ever see her child, and forbidden to ever speak publicly about what had happened. Thomas, meanwhile, would be sold, not as punishment, the church insisted, but as protection. A Catholic merchant in Boston had agreed to purchase him and transport him north to Massachusetts, where anti-Catholic sentiment ran so deep that no one would ever think to link him to a scandal from Savannah. The church would cover his travel expenses and ensure his safety, but he would remain enslaved. The promise of freedom, real or false, died with the tribunal's ruling. Sister Marie Terz received the judgment without a flicker of emotion. She asked only one question: "What will you tell people about the child?" Cardinal Hartley's response carried the cold authority of an institution protecting itself. "We will tell them the truth, that a woman once devoted to the church fell victim to pride and deception. There was no miracle, only human vanity, masquerading as divine will. The child will stand as evidence of sin, not blessing." But Sister Marie Terz smiled, a small, knowing smile that sent a chill through everyone present. "You may tell them whatever you wish, Your Eminence," she said softly, "but the child will be born. And when people see a healthy infant, born to a woman of 51, long past her time of fertility, whose body doctors swore could no longer conceive. When they see that child thriving against all reason, what will they believe? Your carefully prepared story or their own eyes? The birth took place on February 9, 1749, in a private residence in Charleston. A modest two-story house the church had quietly rented for this very purpose. The address was known only to a handful of people. 3 midwives attended, each sworn to secrecy. Dr. Drayton oversaw the delivery, documenting every detail for church records. The house had been chosen with precision. Simple, discreet, on the eastern edge of Charleston, far enough from the busy streets to avoid suspicion, yet close enough to summon help if something went wrong. The property's owner, a widow named Mrs. Eleanor Cunningham, accepted 3 months' rent in gold and asked no questions. She spent that time visiting relatives in Virginia. Sister Marie Terz had been moved there in early January, once her condition could no longer be concealed. 2 nuns accompanied her. Sister Agnes Fontaine, the one who'd found a blood-stained nightdress months earlier, and Sister Catherine Mercier, whose limited medical training made her indispensable. The 3 women lived in near total isolation, venturing out only for brief walks in the enclosed garden after nightfall. Dr. Drayton visited weekly through January, and each visit filled him with greater astonishment. Every examination confirmed the impossible: a healthy, developing fetus in a 51-year-old woman whose reproductive system should have been long dormant. He measured growth, listened to the tiny heartbeat through his wooden stethoscope, and tracked the baby's position. Everything proceeded not just normally, perfectly. He wrote in his private journal on January 28th, "By every medical principle I know, this pregnancy should not exist. Her age, her history, the documented cessation of menses 4 years ago, all indicate absolute infertility. And yet, the child thrives. The mother shows no signs of the dangers I expected. No swelling, no pressure spikes, no mispositioning. It's as though her body has somehow remembered how to sustain life. I begin to doubt whether our understanding of female reproduction is as complete as we claim." The labor began at 1:15 p.m. on February 9th. Sister Marie Terz had been reading, permitted devotional texts, and nothing more. When the first contraction came, Sister Catherine sent for Dr. Drayton, who arrived within the hour with his leather medical bag and 3 seasoned midwives, Hannah Morris, Rebecca Talbot, and Sarah Wickham. Each had delivered hundreds of babies across Charleston. Each had been paid handsomely for her silence. The early stages moved slowly. Sister Marie Terz paced the bedroom, gripping furniture through each contraction, breathing with calm, steady control. She refused the laudanum Dr. Drayton offered. "I want to feel everything," she told him. "If this is the only time I will ever bring life into the world, I will not sleep through it." By 6 p.m., the contractions grew stronger. She could no longer stand, gripping the bedpost while Sister Catherine and Sister Agnes supported her shoulders. The midwives prepared the birthing chair, a wooden seat with a hollow center, designed to use gravity's aid. But Sister Marie Terz refused it. "I will give birth in this bed," she said through clenched teeth. "I want to see everything. I've been denied so much. Do not deny me this." Dr. Drayton was deeply concerned. A woman of her age, giving birth for the first time, faced enormous risks: hemorrhage, rupture, obstructed labor, or fetal distress. He had prepared for emergencies, keeping forceps within reach, though he dreaded using them after witnessing too many tragedies from their misuse. And if all else failed, he had considered the unthinkable: a cesarean section, which in 1749 was essentially a death sentence for the mother. At 9:30 p.m., her water broke, a sudden flood soaking through the linens. The midwives worked quickly, changing the bedding, murmuring prayers as the contractions came faster and sharper. Dr. Drayton examined her. The cervix was fully dilated. He looked up and gave a single quiet instruction: "It's time to push." What followed would test every belief, medical, spiritual, and human, that anyone in that room had ever held. Everyone's endurance was pushed to the limit. Sister Marie labored for over 4 hours, her face flushed with strain, sweat streaming down her temples. Her hands gripped Sister Catherine's so tightly that both women's knuckles turned white. Dr. Drayton monitored the baby's position carefully, feeling the crown to the birth canal, coaching Sister Marie through every push. The midwives rotated between supporting her legs, wiping her face with cool cloths and offering sips of water. Near midnight, Dr. Drayton feared the labor had stalled, a dangerous situation for both mother and child. The baby's head had crowned but seemed stuck, unable to complete its descent. He considered using forceps, but hesitated. Sister Marie saw the doubt on his face and understood immediately. "No instruments," she gasped. "Let me try one more time." She summoned strength from somewhere deep inside, the same iron that had carried her through 33 years of religious discipline, through scandal, interrogations, and months of isolation. She gave one last, desperate push. And at 3:17 in the morning, on February 10th, the baby emerged in a rush of blood and fluid. The infant's cry filled the room instantly, a strong, healthy sound that made everyone exhale in relief. Dr. Drayton caught the baby, quickly checked the airway, confirmed breathing, and handed the child a Hannah Morse for cleaning. The midwife worked swiftly and skillfully, wiping away blood and vernix, counting fingers and toes, examining the umbilical cord. "It's a girl," Hannah announced. "Perfectly formed, good color, strong cry." Dr. Drayton delivered the placenta, examined it carefully to be sure it was complete, since retained tissue could cause deadly infection, and found everything normal. He checked Sister Marie for tearing, found only minor damage that needed a few stitches, and applied them as she lay exhausted against the pillows. Her bleeding was within normal limits. Her pulse, though high, wasn't dangerously so. Against all odds, she had survived childbirth without major complications. The infant weighed 6 pounds, 4 ounces, a healthy size. Her skin was a typical reddish hue of newborns, her eyes dark and unfocused, her tiny fists clenched tight. Rebecca Talbert wrapped her in clean linens and brought her to Sister Marie. The church had ordered immediate separation, but Dr. Drayton intervened. "Give her 12 minutes, he told Sister Agnes, who had been instructed to take the baby as soon as the delivery was complete. Complete denial of contact risks puerperal fever and dangerous melancholy. I've seen women die from it. 12 minutes won't change doctrine, but it might save her life." Sister Agnes hesitated, then nodded. She placed the infant in Sister Marie's arms and stepped back. Sister Marie looked down at her daughter with an expression Dr. Drayton would never forget. It wasn't the pure joy he often saw in new mothers. It was something deeper, a fusion of triumph and grief, wonder and desperation. She touched the baby's face with trembling fingers, tracing the tiny nose, the perfect ears, the soft downy hair. "They will tell you I deceived people," she whispered, her voice raw from hours of labor. "They will say I created you out of pride and manipulation. But I know the truth. I was barren, medically, absolutely barren. 3 physicians confirmed it. Dr. Drayton himself said my body could not support pregnancy. Yet here you are. You breathe. You are perfect." The baby made small, instinctive sounds, rooting toward her mother's chest. Dr. Drayton had forbidden nursing. The church demanded no bond be formed that could make separation harder, but he allowed this brief moment of connection. Sister Marie held her daughter close, breathing in the scent of new life, memorizing every detail. "Whether I use science or faith or both," she murmured, "something beyond human understanding happened. They say it wasn't a miracle because I use mechanical means. But who decides what miracles look like? If God gave humans the intelligence to understand his creation, is using that intelligence somehow less divine than waiting in silence? You are my testimony. You are my answer to those who say faith and knowledge cannot coexist." At 3:29, exactly 12 minutes after birth, Sister Agnes stepped forward. "It's time." Sister Marie kissed her daughter's forehead once, gently, and released her. Sister Agnes took the infant and left the room before Marie could change her mind. The door closed with a soft click, a sound that felt impossibly final in the sudden silence. Sister Marie turned her face to the wall and didn't speak for 3 days. The adoptive family, Jonathan and Savannah Redmond of Virginia, arrived in Charleston on February 11th. They were a prosperous couple in their 30s, unable to conceive after 10 years of marriage. The church had vetted them carefully. Devout Catholics, financially secure, socially respected, desperate for a child, and willing to maintain absolute secrecy about the infant's origin. Bishop Fenwick met them personally in a private room at Charleston's Catholic rectory. He handed them the baby, now dressed in fine linens the church had provided, and explained the terms. They were to tell everyone, family, friends, their entire community, that the child was their natural daughter, born to Savannah after years of supposed infertility. They would never reveal the truth, never search for the biological mother, never discuss how the child came into their care. They would raise her as a proper Catholic, give her a suitable education, and provide every advantage. In return, the church would fully support their story. Father Thomas Donnelly had already prepared falsified baptismal records, showing the baby as born to the Redmonds. The church would even provide witnesses if needed, nuns who would swear they had attended Savannah during her pregnancy, and priests who would confirm they'd blessed the expectant mother months earlier. Jonathan Redmond held the infant awkwardly. He had never touched a baby before. While Savannah wept with joy, they asked only one question. "What's her name?" "She has no name," Bishop Fenwick replied. "You will choose it and baptize her in your parish church." As far as the world is concerned, she came into existence on February 10th, 1749, in Virginia. Everything before that moment is erased. They named her Charlotte, baptized her on February 20th at their parish church in Richmond, and raised her as their own. She would never know otherwise. Sister Marie remained in the Charleston residence for 2 months, recovering physically while church officials debated her fate. Her recovery surprised Dr. Drayton. He had expected complications, infection, hemorrhage, the deadly puerperal fevers that claimed so many new mothers. Instead, Sister Marie healed swiftly. Her stitches dissolved normally, her bleeding stopped within 10 days, and by late February, she was physically sound. But mentally, she had fallen into a darkness that deeply troubled Dr. Drayton. She ate only when Sister Catherine pressed food into her hands. She stared at the wall for hours, silent, motionless. She refused to pray. She would not even hold a rosary when offered. At night, the other women heard her weeping, long, muffled sobs that seemed to drain the last of her strength. Sister Catherine, who had known her for 7 years, recognized that this was not simple grief. It was a total collapse, the breaking of a will that once seemed unbreakable. She invested everything in this, Sister Catherine told Dr. Drayton during one of his visits. Her entire identity, her understanding of her relationship with God, her belief that she could prove faith through knowledge. Now the child is gone. Her religious life is over. She has nothing left. I fear she may harm herself. Dr. Drayton began visiting daily, monitoring not just her physical recovery, but her fragile mental state. He brought her books, not religious texts, but literature, histories, anything that might stir her mind. She barely glanced at them. He tried conversation, asking about her childhood in Quebec, her early years in religious life, anything to draw her back toward the living world. She answered in single words, or not at all. During those weeks, Sister Marie wrote endlessly. Letters, theological arguments, personal reflections. Writing was the only thing that seemed to animate her at all. She filled page after page in her neat, disciplined script, working by candlelight deep into the night. Each morning, Sister Catherine collected the pages, unsure what to do. Church officials had forbidden Sister Marie from producing any written material, but Sister Catherine couldn't bring herself to confiscate the only thing keeping the woman from total despair. Most of those writings were eventually destroyed when the church discovered them. Only 3 letters survived. Preserved by Father Michael O'Brien, a young priest assigned to assist with her exile preparations. Something in those letters moved him. Their raw honesty, their refusal to recant despite everything, their deep struggle with questions of faith and knowledge. He hid them among his personal papers, a quiet act of rebellion against institutional orders. The first letter, dated March 5th, was addressed to no one, perhaps to God, or perhaps to the daughter she would never see again. They tell me I sinned through pride. Perhaps they are right. But what is faith without action? What is belief without testing? Abraham was willing to sacrifice Isaac to prove his devotion. Was my experiment so different? I offer myself, my body, my reputation, my entire religious life, to demonstrate that God's creation includes pathways we have not yet understood. I studied how life begins. I applied that knowledge. A child was born who doctors said could never exist. They call this deception, but I call it partnership with divine purpose. God created natural law, and by using that law to achieve what seems impossible, is that not faith made manifest? The second letter, dated March 15th, confronted her guilt about Thomas directly. I have sinned grievously against Thomas, and that sin weighs heavier than any other charge against me. I told myself that participation served a higher purpose, that the end justified the means, that I would ultimately secure his freedom and make everything right. But I lied to him. I showed him forged documents. I manipulated his desperate hope for liberty to serve my own goals. I told myself I would protect him, but I couldn't. I didn't. The church sold him away to save itself from scandal, and I lacked the power or position to intervene. If there's damnation, I deserve it not for the pregnancy. I still believe it was righteous, but for how I treated another human being as a tool rather than as a soul equal in God's eyes. Thomas, if you ever read these words, know that I am sorry. It changes nothing, repairs nothing, but it is true. The third letter, dated March 29th, contained her theological defense, the argument she had been refining since her tribunal. The church fathers who condemned me claim that manipulating natural processes cannot constitute divine intervention. But I ask, what is prayer if not an attempt to influence divine will? What are sacraments but physical materials, bread, wine, water, oil, used to convey spiritual grace? What is any religious practice but human action intended to connect with transcendent reality? I used knowledge instead of ritual, science instead of ceremony, but the goal was the same, to demonstrate God's power working through human agency. They reject my methods while embracing their own, yet both rely on the same principle, that divine and human action can intersect. They call their intersections holy and mine heretical, simply because I use tools they didn't yet understand or approve of. In 100, maybe 200 years, medical science will find ways for women once called barren to bear children. And when that day comes, will they remember me as a heretic or as a pioneer? Will they see that I wasn't wrong in principle, only ahead of my time? These letters reveal a woman wrestling with real theological questions, not trying to justify selfish choices. She grasped the full weight of what she'd done, the scientific daring, the religious implications, the moral failures. Yet she refused to repent completely because she truly believed that the pregnancy itself was righteous, even if her treatment of Thomas was not. This gray area, this moral complexity, infuriated church officials who demanded either total repentance or open rebellion. Sister Marie Terz gave them neither. She gave them only the truth, tangled and uncomfortable as it was. The church's final judgment came in April. Bishop Fenwick himself arrived to deliver it. Sister Marie Terz was to be exiled to the convent of the Sacred Heart in Quebec, a cloistered order where the sisters live in perpetual silence, devoted to prayer and cut off from the world. There she would take new vows, absolute silence, absolute obedience, absolute withdrawal from earthly life. She would never teach again, never write, never speak of Savannah. Her name would be entered into the records as having died in Charleston, 1749. For all practical purposes, Marie Terz would cease to exist. "You are being granted mercy," Bishop Fenwick told her. "The alternative is complete excommunication, removal from the church, from community, from purpose. At least in Quebec, you remain within the faith, even if silenced." Sister Marie received the sentence without expression. She had expected worse. Perhaps public excommunication, perhaps a civil trial for deception. Exile meant survival, even if it wasn't life as she'd imagined. "May I ask one question?" she said quietly. The bishop nodded. "The child, Charlotte, they named her. Will she ever be told where she came from?" "Absolutely not. She will only know that Jonathan and Susanna Redmond are her parents. This question, this conversation, is the last time her true origin will ever be spoken of within the church. Do you understand?" Marie understood. She nodded once and spoke no more. On April 23rd, 1749, escorted by Father O'Brien and Sister Catherine, who had volunteered to accompany her, Sister Marie Terz left Charleston aboard the merchant ship Harmony. The sea voyage to Boston lasted 6 days, followed by 3 weeks of overland travel to Quebec. Sister Catherine's letters, now preserved in the Savannah Diocese archives, describe Sister Marie Terz on that journey as a woman already half gone from this world, physically present but spiritually elsewhere. They arrived at the convent of the Sacred Heart on May 27th. Sister Catherine remained for 3 days before beginning her return to Georgia. In her final letter to Mother Superior Josephine Beaumont, she described Marie's entrance. She walked into the chapel for Vespers and took her place among the silent sisters without hesitation. When the prayers ended and the others departed wordlessly, she simply closed her eyes and began to pray. "I do not know if she will find peace in this place, but I know she will keep its silence. She has nothing left to say." In 1763, during the 7 Years' War, the convent burned when British troops occupied Quebec. No surviving records tell whether Sister Marie died in the fire, perished earlier from illness, or somehow escaped to live under another name. Officially, she is listed as deceased in 1749. Her true fate forever unknown. Thomas's path proved far more dangerous than anyone expected. He arrived in Boston on December 4th, 1748, sold to merchant Isaac Peton for £42 sterling, well above market price. The church secretly covered the difference to ensure Peton's cooperation and to hide Thomas's origins. Peton ran a shipping and textile firm that required educated workers to handle ledgers, letters, and inventory. Thomas fit perfectly. He was placed in a small office above the warehouse and soon earned Peton's approval. But Boston's atmosphere was far harsher than the church had foreseen. The Puritan majority distrusted Catholics deeply, and the scandal from Savannah, though details were buried, had leaked just enough to provoke public outrage. Newspapers printed speculation. Ministers thundered from pulpits about Catholic corruption. Rumors of nuns, enslaved men, and supposed miracles stirred every existing prejudice. Reverend Jonathan Cole of the Old North Church became consumed by the story. He heard whispers that someone tied to the scandal had been moved to Boston, and he vowed to expose what he called papist deceit poisoning New England's moral purity. Through December 1748 and January 1749, he preached sermon after sermon, never naming Thomas directly, but describing a plot involving priests, enslaved people, and fabricated miracles meant to deceive the righteous. Thomas kept his head down. He worked long hours, spoke little, and prayed the attention would fade. He lived in a small room above the warehouse, rarely leaving, avoiding the city, avoiding eyes. Savannah had taught him that visibility brought danger. Peton instructed him that, if anyone asked, he was to say he had worked for the merchant for years, that he'd been purchased from Virginia, estate, that his education had come from a kindly former owner. The story was thin, but believable enough, if no one looked too closely. Everything remained stable until March 7th, 1749, when disaster struck. A sailor who had worked on the ship that brought Thomas from Charleston happened to dock in Boston. After several drinks in a waterfront tavern, he began boasting to his companions that he'd once carried the black fellow from that Catholic nun scandal down in Georgia. The sailor didn't know Thomas's name and couldn't say where he was now, but that single rumor was enough. The confirmation that someone tied to the scandal might be in Boston spread like wildfire. Within hours, Reverend Cole had heard, and when Catholic scandal was involved, Boston's religious networks moved with frightening speed. Cole immediately launched an investigation, questioning merchants who'd recently acquired enslaved men, checking dock records, interviewing captains. His obsession paid off. By March 9th, he'd identified merchant Isaac Petton's recent purchase of an unusually well-educated man from Charleston. On March 10th, Cole arrived at Petton's warehouse, bringing 6 members of his congregation. They demanded to see Thomas, claiming they had questions about Catholic corruption and deception. Petton, torn between protecting his business and the man under his care, made a calculated choice. He couldn't hide Thomas. Cole would only return with more men, perhaps even constables. But he also refused to hand him over to what was fast becoming a mob. "Thomas works for me," Petton said firmly. "He's my legal property, purchased lawfully. If you have questions about the church, direct them there. Thomas's only crime is having once belonged to it. He's guilty of nothing except bad fortune." Cole wasn't appeased. He participated in sacrilege, he thundered. He aided the creation of a false miracle. He defiled a bride of Christ. His very presence here, walking freely among honest Christians, is an insult to God. The confrontation grew tense. Cole's followers shouted for Thomas to be turned over for proper questioning. Petton stood his ground, threatening to summon constables if they didn't leave his property. For 3 long hours, the standoff held, until Cole finally backed down, but not before delivering his warning. "This isn't over. That man will answer for his sins, whether you protect him or not." Petton understood the danger immediately. Boston's constables might defend property rights in theory, but they would never risk public unrest to protect an enslaved man connected to a Catholic scandal. If Cole returned with a larger mob, Petton would either have to surrender Thomas or see his business destroyed. That night, Petton made his decision. One of his ships, the Providence, was set to sail the next day, March 11th, for Nova Scotia, carrying textiles and tools to Halifax. Petton had contacts there, including a Scottish merchant named William Barrett, who occasionally took on educated laborers for his warehouse. "I'm sending you to Halifax," Petton told Thomas the next morning. "It isn't freedom. I'm transferring you to Barrett's supervision, but it'll get you out of Boston before this blows apart. Barrett's a decent man, fair, not cruel. Halifax is far from this madness. No one there will care about your past." Thomas had no choice. That afternoon, he boarded the Providence with nothing but the clothes on his back and a small satchel of writing materials Petton had given him. The ship departed at dusk, gliding quietly out of Boston Harbor, while Reverend Cole gathered a larger group to return to Petton's warehouse the next day. The voyage to Halifax took 12 days, March 11th through March 23rd. The ship's log, now preserved in the Massachusetts Maritime Museum, lists Thomas as indentured crew, carpenter's assistant, a legal fiction meant to offer some protection if the vessel was stopped and questioned by authorities. In truth, Thomas worked mainly in the cargo hold, organizing goods and assisting with inventory and loading. The Providence reached Halifax on March 23rd, 1749. Halifax was barely a settlement then, founded only months earlier as a British outpost meant to counter French influence in Nova Scotia. Its population hovered around 2,500, mostly soldiers, merchants, and a handful of enslaved or indentured workers. The town was a patchwork of rough timber buildings, muddy streets, and constant tension between survival and ambition. William Barrett met the ship himself. He was a pragmatic Scottish trader in his 40s, running a small but steady business supplying the military garrison. He needed someone literate to keep ledgers, handle correspondence, and manage stock, a job he'd been doing alone. Petton's letter had described Thomas's education and reliability, making him valuable despite the mysterious nature of his transfer. Barrett sized him up quickly. "You can read and write?" "Yes, sir." "Keep accounts?" "Yes, sir." "Petton says you were mixed up in some church scandal down south." He shrugged. "I don't care about that. I care whether you'll work honestly." "Will you?" "Yes, sir." "Good. You'll live in the warehouse, handle my records, and help with physical work when needed. I pay in goods, food, clothing, supplies. If you prove your worth, I might consider manumission someday, but that's years away, and only if the circumstances allow." Thomas nodded. He understood. It wasn't freedom, but it was safety, and it was better than he had hoped for. The work suited him. He kept meticulous records, organized shipments, and handled correspondence with efficiency. Barrett proved fair, never cruel, never condescending. He valued competence over color or creed. But Halifax was harsh in other ways. The winter of 1749 to 1750 brought an extraordinary winter. The harbor froze solid. Wind sliced through the warehouse's thin wooden walls. Snow buried the settlement for weeks on end. Food supplies dwindled, and scurvy spread among the soldiers and settlers. Several people froze to death in their homes. Thomas survived the season, but barely. Barrett ensured he had enough food and firewood. Yet even so, the relentless cold tested everyone's limits. By the spring of 1750, Thomas had lost weight, developed a persistent cough, and showed the same signs of malnutrition that plagued so much of Halifax's fragile population. And here, the historical record of Thomas ends. Barrett's business documents, fragmentary and incomplete, mention him regularly until September 1750. After that, there is silence. Halifax's early records were notoriously chaotic. Fires consumed archives, and poor administration meant that enslaved and indentured people often vanished from documentation entirely. Historians have debated Thomas's fate ever since. Some believe he may have gained his freedom. In Nova Scotia, British authorities often turn a blind eye to escaped or self-emancipated people, especially those with valuable skills. Perhaps Barrett granted manumission, or perhaps Thomas simply disappeared into the colony's vast frontier, where questions about origins were rarely asked. Others suggest a darker ending, that he died during the brutal winter of 1750 to 1751, even harsher than the last. That year Halifax endured catastrophic cold and famine, killing dozens. Weakened by hunger and illness, Thomas may not have survived. A third theory, supported by a fragment of evidence, claims he joined a small community of free black settlers near Preston, Nova Scotia, in the early 1750s. A 1752 land grant lists a Thomas among the settlers, but without a surname or identifying details. The truth remains unknowable. Thomas vanished from history, one more life erased by forces beyond his control. His voice survives only in those few hours of testimony before the Charleston Tribunal. Charlotte, the infant at the center of the scandal, lived a completely different life, untouched by knowledge of her origins. The Redmonds raised her as their own daughter in Richmond, Virginia, providing her with comfort, education, and social standing befitting their position. She grew into an intelligent, serious-minded young woman. Her parents hired a private tutor, unusual, though not unheard of, for a prosperous family's daughter. Charlotte learned French, studied literature, and became accomplished in piano and needlework. Family correspondence preserved in the Virginia Historical Society describes her as thoughtful beyond her years, sometimes melancholy, but kind and strikingly beautiful. At 19, she married Edward Fitzgerald, the son of a Philadelphia merchant. The marriage was stable, more partnership than passion. Together they managed their household efficiently, raised 4 children who all survived into adulthood, and built a life marked by quiet respect and decency. Charlotte's letters to her mother, reveal a woman content, but occasionally troubled by feelings she couldn't quite define. In one letter dated June 1771, she wrote, "Sometimes I feel as though I'm living someone else's life, mother. Not unhappily. Edward is kind, the children are well, and we lack nothing. But sometimes I look in the mirror and wonder whose face I'm seeing. You'll think me foolish. Pay no attention." Susanna Redmond's reply, preserved in the same collection, offers a mother's gentle deflection. "All women feel such things at times, dearest. We wonder who we might have been, what paths might have unfolded. These thoughts mean nothing. You are exactly who you should be, my beloved daughter, Edward's devoted wife, mother to my precious grandchildren. Nothing else matters." Charlotte lived to the age of 73, dying peacefully in Philadelphia in 1822, surrounded by family. Her obituary in the Philadelphia Gazette praised her as a woman of exemplary character, a devoted mother, and generous supporter of charitable works. She had lived a full life, raised children who raised children, left her mark on her community in quiet but lasting ways. Yet she never knew the truth of her conception, the scandal surrounding her birth, or the remarkable woman who had brought her into the world through extraordinary defiance. Whether Charlotte ever suspected anything is lost to time. Family stories hint that she sometimes wondered why she looked so little like either parent, taller, darker-haired, with features that seemed to belong to neither family line. But if she asked, her questions were met with reassurances that preserved the illusion she had always known. St. Catherine's Convent, meanwhile, never recovered. Enrollment collapsed almost overnight. Wealthy families withdrew their daughters, unwilling to be associated with a place tainted by scandal. By 1755, only 8 nuns and 12 students remained. Funding evaporated. In 1758, the Catholic Church closed the institution entirely and sold the property to merchant Samuel Dawkins, who converted the convent buildings into warehouses. During renovations, workers sealed off the small chapel where Sister Marie Terz had performed her secret procedures. Official records cited structural instability as a reason, but private correspondence within the church told another story. The goal was to erase the place itself, to bury every trace of what had happened there. Whatever instruments, documents, or remnants remained were locked away behind new brick walls that, by all accounts, still stand today. The chapel's ceiling symbolized the church's determination to forget. Its silence endured, its secrets entombed. When St. Catherine's closed in 1758, its physical presence vanished from Savannah, but the whispers never did. For decades, rumors persisted about what had happened within those walls. The city's Catholic community fractured. Families withdrew from the church, ashamed or fearful. Protestant ministers seized upon the scandal as proof of Catholic corruption, invoking it from their pulpits for years to come. By the late 1750s, only a handful of Catholic families remained in Georgia, isolated, defensive, and weary of suspicion. Mother Superior Josephine Beaumont, who had arranged Sister Marie Terz's transfer to Savannah 7 years earlier, lived with. Whether the miracle was divine, medical, or merely coincidental, none can say. The evidence, like the lives it describes, is fragmented, incomplete, and blurred by time. What endures the echoes, testimonies whispered across centuries, letters penned in trembling hands, journals hidden from prying eyes. Each person caught in this web, Thomas, Charlotte, Sister Marie Terz, was shaped and consumed by forces far beyond their control. Their lives intersected for only a brief moment, yet that moment rippled through decades of silence, shame, and secrecy. Sister Marie Terz, confined in Quebec until her death in 1763, never spoke publicly again. Parish records note her as a woman of great penitence and unshakable faith. But between those careful lines lies the truth of a woman who believed she could reconcile science and God, and paid the price for such conviction. Thomas, vanished into the shadows of history, stands as a symbol of countless others, enslaved, forgotten, erased. Whether he found freedom or perished in the cold, his story ends with dignity only memory can grant him. And Charlotte, innocent, unknowing, represents the cruel irony of legacy. She lived a full, respectable life, surrounded by love, yet never aware of the scandal that had given her life its beginning. Her quiet death in Philadelphia closed a final chapter of a story that began with forbidden faith and unthinkable defiance. By the dawn of the 19th century, Savannah had grown, rebuilt, and forgotten. The convent became a warehouse, then a factory, then ruins reclaimed by time. The sealed chapel still stood, its bricks untouched, its air heavy with secrets no one dared to disturb. Even today, local lore speaks faintly of a ghostly nun, seen wandering near the old riverfront warehouses when the fog rolls in from the Atlantic. Some say she searches for forgiveness. Others whisper she guards what was buried there, evidence, relics, or perhaps something still alive in spirit. But history leaves no answers, only questions, only the haunting reminder that truth, once buried, does not die. It waits, patiently, beneath the dust of centuries, beneath stone and silence, until someone dares to remember. And when it is remembered, the story of Sister Marie Terz Thomas and Charlotte breeds again, not as miracle or myth, but as a fragile proof of what humanity is capable when faith, knowledge, and power collide, whether her claims of divine purpose were born from true faith or crafted as an elaborate justification. No one can say. These questions remained unanswered during her lifetime, and they remain unanswered still. What cannot be denied is this. In 1749, a 51-year-old woman gave birth to a healthy child. That single event ignited a scandal the Catholic Church worked desperately to erase. Lives were shattered, reputations destroyed, and choices made within those convent walls rippled through generations. The rest, interpretation, judgment, understanding, belongs to us, the ones who uncover the story and must decide what it truly means. This scandal stands as a reminder that history's most unsettling mysteries are not born from fiction, but from real people, souls caught in circumstances beyond their control, victims of institutions that prize reputation over justice. So what do you think of Sister Marie Terz's actions? Was she a woman of unwavering faith, who believed knowledge and devotion could walk hand in hand? Or was she consumed by pride and ambition, blinded by her own conviction? And what about Thomas, an innocent man whose only crime was daring to hope for freedom? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you've been drawn into this dark chapter from America's hidden past, make sure to subscribe to Liturgy of Fear, hit the notification bell, and share this story with someone who loves historical mysteries that challenge everything we think we know. Until next time, remember, the darkest chapters of history are often the ones powerful institutions tried hardest to erase.